This line was drawn in 5 weeks by a British lawyer who had never been to India. It split 10 million people from their homes, caused the largest mass migration in human history, and sparked a conflict that's killed over 100,000 people. Today, it's the most dangerous border on Earth, two nuclear powers facing off over a line one man drew in 1947. This is the story of how Sir Cyril Radcliffe created a border that still haunts South Asia. In 1947, British India was home to 400 million people. It included modern-day India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and parts of Myanmar. Muslims, Hindus, and Sikhs had lived together for centuries under British colonial rule. But Britain was leaving, and they decided India should be partition split into two countries: Hindu-majority India, Muslim-majority Pakistan. The problem? Nobody knew where to draw the line, and Britain gave one man 5 weeks to figure it out. Sir Cyril Radcliffe was a British lawyer. He specialized in tax law. He had never been to India. He knew nothing about Indian geography, culture, or politics. And he was given 5 weeks to draw a border through one of the most densely populated regions on Earth. Why him? Because British officials thought his ignorance was an advantage. He had no ties to India, no bias toward any community. He'd be objective. This was a catastrophic misunderstanding of what the task required. Show maps of religious demographics. Look at this religious population map from 1947. See how mixed it is? In Punjab and Bengal, the two regions that would be split, Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs lived in neighboring villages, sometimes on the same streets. Radcliffe's task was to draw a line that would create a Hindu-majority India, create a Muslim-majority Pakistan, account for 400 million people, not cause violence. And he had 5 weeks, with outdated maps and census data from 1941. Radcliffe worked in extreme secrecy in a room in Delhi. The temperature was over 40 degrees Celsius. He had no air conditioning. He worked with maps, population data, and pressure from both sides. The Indian National Congress wanted more territory. The Muslim League wanted more territory. Local leaders lobbied him. Everyone demanded special treatment for their communities. Radcliffe had to consider religious demographics, railway lines, rivers and irrigation systems, agricultural land, historical boundaries, strategic considerations. And he had to do it alone. He refused to visit the regions he was dividing. He never met with local leaders. He just drew lines on maps. On August 17, 1947, 2 days after independence, Radcliffe announced his boundary. Look at it. It's not clean. It's not logical. It cuts through villages, separates families, splits irrigation systems, and divides farms. Punjab was split almost in half. Bengal was split. Some villages found themselves in the wrong country. Some families woke up to discover they were suddenly foreigners in their own homes. What followed was the largest mass migration in human history. Between 10 and 20 million people crossed the new border in both directions. Muslims fled to Pakistan. Hindus and Sikhs fled to India. But this wasn't orderly. It was chaos. Trains full of refugees were attacked. Entire villages were massacred. Women were abducted. Conservative estimates say 1 million people died in the partition violence. Some estimates go as high as 2 million. Here's what makes it worse. Radcliffe announced the border after independence. India and Pakistan became independent on August 15th. The border was announced on August 17th. For 2 days, nobody knew which country they were in. The uncertainty fueled panic and violence. The most dangerous part of Radcliffe's border is Kashmir. Kashmir was a princely state, technically independent, with the right to choose which country to join. Its ruler was Hindu. Its population was majority Muslim. When local Muslims rebelled and Pakistani forces entered, the Maharaja acceded to India. India sent troops. Pakistan claimed Kashmir should be Pakistani because of its Muslim majority. This dispute has never been resolved. India and Pakistan have fought 3 full wars over Kashmir and multiple smaller conflicts. Both countries are now nuclear powers. The Kashmir border, the line of control, is the most militarized border on Earth. Today, Soldiers face each other across Radcliffe's line in Kashmir. Skirmishes occur regularly. Both sides have nuclear weapons pointed at each other. And it all traces back to a line drawn in 5 weeks by a man who never visited the region. Could Radcliffe have drawn a better border? Probably not in 5 weeks. The task was impossible from the start. Some historians argue that partition itself was the mistake, that India should have remained united. Others argue that better planning and more time could have reduced the violence. But Britain was determined to leave quickly. They'd promised independence. They didn't want to deal with the complexity. So they gave Radcliffe an impossible job and left. Consequences. Today, over 75 years later, India and Pakistan remain hostile. The border is closed in most places. Families separated in 1947 have never reunited. The trauma of partition is passed down through generations. Both countries spend enormous amounts on military forces facing each other. Resources that could go to development instead go to defense. Economic cooperation is minimal. Travel between the countries is difficult and rare. At Wagah, the main border crossing, India and Pakistan hold a daily ceremony. Soldiers from both sides perform an elaborate, aggressive display of lowering flags. Thousands watch. It's become a tourist attraction. But it's a symbol of the relationship. Theatrical hostility over a border that should never have been drawn the way it was. So, here's what makes the Radcliffe Line different from other colonial borders. It wasn't drawn to benefit the colonizer. It wasn't about resources or control. It was drawn hastily by a man who knew nothing about the region, under impossible time pressure, with catastrophic consequences. Could anyone have done better? Maybe. But the fundamental mistake was thinking you could draw a line through a population that had lived together for centuries and not expect tragedy. Sir Cyril Radcliffe returned to Britain immediately after finishing his work. He never went back to South Asia. He refused his payment for the job. When asked about it later, he said he'd done his best under impossible circumstances. He probably had. But his best still created a border that's killed hundreds of thousands, displaced millions, and threatens nuclear war. Sometimes the best answer to an impossible task is to admit it shouldn't be done at all.